That, I hope, is the difference, and that's why I'm hopeful that we'll get some traction in this.
On the $1,000 cap, is that pre or post, where if you give $1,000, you're not permitted to get the contract, or once you receive the contract, you can't give more than $1,000?
Let me just read the language to you here. No person or entity who contracts with the state shall contribute more than $1,000 to any candidate for a state office. Does that serve to answer the question?
Could they then donate $50,000 to an organization like the HDCC or the HRCC and still get a contract, though?
You know, Jason, it's a fair point that the language doesn't cover that situation, and I'd certainly be willing to address that in committee to close any potential loophole there. And I think
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. We may word that to continue committee or any political committee, but that's the intent of the language.
Putting on the contribution limits back in, is that part of this bill?
That is not contained in this legislation. We're trying very hard to do something here that is all about ethics standards and that doesn't necessarily wade into partisan wars. So campaign finance limits, while personally I'm a strong supporter of them, I think I can stand up here and recognize that reasonable minds, including reasonable people who are interested in cleaning up the culture of pay to play in this Capitol building, might have different opinions about those campaign limits. So we want to focus on things here that both Democrats and Republicans can stand up and say, you know what, this has to change.
Is it also because if that was put in, it probably would never get out of the Senate, considering the person who sponsored that is now the Senate pro tem?
Well, again, following what Jake said, the ethics is really our big concern here. Mm-hmm. We're really trying to get on the gist. Campaign finance is a whole nother topic. Today's discussion is about having members in this Capitol accepting income from other members. That's problematic, and we need to make sure that doesn't happen again. That's really the heart of this bill, and then there's other provisions that also deal with ethics, but campaign finance is a whole other topic.
Is it wrong for somebody to be a legislator and serve as, say, a political consultant for another legislator? What is wrong? Have there been examples of it contributing to a bill's pathway? And if you could, give me a specific example.
It's a classic appearance of impropriety standard coupled with the potential for genuine impropriety. So while there is in principle nothing wrong with the idea of someone providing pure political advice as a consultant to another politician, the simple reality of it is just that there is no way to conceive of such a structure without creating meaningful potential for some really bad stuff. Because the moment that you give one member a strong financial incentive that is predicated on receiving payments from that other member's campaign committee or what have you, well then what happens there is you just create too easy of an opportunity for that member to do the other one a favor, to make sure that a bill moves through a committee, to make sure that bad legislation is killed, to make sure that someone filibusters a bill that the other member doesn't like. And frankly, I'm just not aware of any way to eliminate that very real potential for misdeeds other than simply to ban the practice.
Along those same lines, what's the problem with the lack of a ban currently, a moratorium on people leaving the lawmaking body and lobbying this year? For instance, this year, both ex-Senator Mike Gibbons and former State Rep. Shane Cooper are indeed doing that, working as lobbyists in this building. What's wrong with that?
I'll let Jake handle that.
Sure. What's wrong with it is that it leaves a bad taste in the mouth of pretty much any independent observer of politics. I think the notion that we are public servants brings with it also the notion that we're in this job because we care about it and because we want to do the right thing for the people of Missouri. We're certainly not in it for the pay right now, but we sure as heck ought not to be in it for the pay we might get a year from now in order to translate it into some sort of lucrative position. It's not an accident that so many states have banned this practice, extended similar limitations, and in fact, plenty of jurisdictions have 2-year bans or greater. And it's certainly not an accident that even in Washington, D.C., they were able to impose a 1-year ban roughly a decade ago. The bottom line is the public expects better of their elected officials. And we're not talking about permanently banning someone from pursuing their career, but the notion that someone only comes into elected office in order to immediately turn around and sell their access, frankly, Tony, that's a little disturbing.